It's not ironic that we ended up on this screen where the central issue here is that it's 70% cheaper. And this is kind of destroying what's the topic?
Going over AI and fashion.
Fashion. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a really great time to talk about AI and fashion because of Fashion Week going on. This year, there was the first ever AI fashion show. And the designers designed an AI collection, submitted it to them, and then they presented it at New York Fashion Week and online, and let the public vote on their favorite collection. Over 400 collections submitted, and they narrowed it down to about 130 of them for people to vote on. Right? They put out a set of guidelines that were, pretty specific, but mainly everything had to be generated by AI. I'm using different generative AI tools. Yeah. And then it could be, let's say, photoshopped and tweaked, to get rid of the 6 fingers and the wonky eyes that we've been seeing in the AI generated images, right? But they needed to create about 15 to 30 looks each designer. And they also asked them to create.
The fashion designer in this context is someone who's putting in a prompt, who has an initial idea for something that they would like for a look. They put in a prompt, they get a bunch of options, and then they're curating and tweaking the output to kind of line up with what their original thought is. But AI is doing the kind of whole middle section here of turning the initial idea into something visual. This is a fashion designer putting a prompt into a generative image generation tool like Midjourney.
Right. This company developed a tool that uses generative AI to create hyper realistic, basically the hopes that these big fashion brands are going to pick up their tool and start using them as ways to promote their products. Right? And promote their clothes online and to different audiences.
Fashion brands to put this up in their stores or to use this as advertising on their website or in ads. Is that where they're going with it?
Yeah, that's exactly where they're going with it. They're basically going to be, let's say, selling this to big companies, have a virtual catwalk for their fashion lines, right? Right now, when you have to obviously when you create a fashion show, it takes, months, if not a year of planning. And, you have all those physical products and all of the things that go into planning an entire fashion show, right? Yeah. But this is kind of moving in the direction of doing all of that virtually and not having to plan, not having to have a physical fashion show in a sense. Does that make sense?
So it's not just we have to hire a venue, invite a load of people. That's a lot of work. That's a huge expense. We're also completely removing, we have to design all of these clothes and we have to make all of these physical garments, because we're saying look, we can have an initial idea for a line of fashion and then we can just have an entire show in a week or in a day. I don't know how long this takes to generate. I'm assuming it's more than a day. So in a couple of weeks, we have the entire season's collection, and then we can decide if we want to develop it, actually put a show together. Those are both really interesting directions, because I personally know a fashion designer that I'm thinking about in particular, and putting a shoot together for her is a lot of work. You have to find the right model, you have to get all the clothes together, you have to find the location. It's a lot of organizing on the day. If there is software that I can show her and be look, you're still going to have to do shoots for the big collections, but you can use this. This is what you need to put into it, and this is what you can get out of it. That would be amazing. I would really like to be able to understand how close it is to end-level consumer getting a fashion shoot, where AI helps end-level consumers get that. That I think is really interesting. And then the style bot, for me personally, I would really like to use it because I fall firmly in the norm core category. Fashion is not something that I spend a lot of time.
Stitch Fix is a big one. It's basically kind of like a subscription model where, you put in your preferences and they'll suggest different fashion senses for you. Fashion recommendations for you, and kind of you can go on liking them and disliking them, and then it will kind of suggest different things for you. So this has been around for a very long time, but those types of companies are now starting to integrate the AI chatbots into their platforms. Stitch Fix is a leader in that industry. And
Stitch Fix, I'm aware of. My experience, unless it's changed, my experience with Stitch Fix was I can sign up to a subscription, weekly, monthly, I don't remember what it was, and basically they send me options for clothes that I like. I fill out a questionnaire, and then they kind of send me a bunch of clothes every month and I can take the ones I want and send back the ones that I don't want. But that's like a purely purchasing, like that's a commercial transaction. Are there bots that I can use just with the clothes I already have?
With the clothes that you already have, I'm not so sure. So this is still going to be in that commercial transaction, mostly like suggesting stylistic choices for you to buy. This is an example, something like Stitch Fix, right? But they're heading into the direction using the chat bot as a personal stylist, right? So the idea is using GPT technology to chat with the bot, saying, I'm going to a friend's wedding in Santorini this July. Do you have any dress recommendations? The bot fashion assistant is what they're calling, comes back with a response that says basically, Santorini is hot and windy in July. So I'd recommend wearing something elegant and comfortable like this. And then they give you a bunch of options. So basically the idea here is that the consumer said, I'm going to a wedding in Santorini in July, and it recognized that it's going to be hot, that it needs to be formal, and then it spit out a bunch of suggestions that they could buy.
Yeah, and so they would go through like a whole look. So I can see shoes and the dress, so you'd pick out a dress, and you pick out an accessory, then you pick out the shoes for it, and it would kind of go through the entire sequence in a very conversational, like the experience would be like speaking to someone who's knowledgeable.
I mean, that's kind of what those bots are doing, the ones that we just looked at, like in a sense, they're selling you, and they are keeping track of your preferences, and they're keeping track of the things that you buy. Even though you wouldn't be able to implement what you have in your current closet, once you start buying things on their platform or searching for things or liking things or things like that, it is keeping track, and it will start offering suggestions based on your personal preferences. And another thing to note is that those bots are also taking into consideration a lot of different factors like body size and body shape and color tone. A company called Deep Agency that is now just created the first is what they're saying, AI modeling agency. Basically a company that has, well, I don't want to say that they have a bunch of models because it's generated, but when let's say a company needs a model, let's say your friend needs a model for a photo shoot, but in this case, we're not going to actually do the photo shoot. Your friend is going to go type in the description of what they want their photo to look like, right? And then the users are going to receive that generated photo of a virtual model.
Counterintuitive where the pockets of difficulty are with this. Like you would have thought that faces would be harder than hands, but hands seem to like broken the image generation side of AI. It's like, oh no, we can't get the right number of fingers. I understand why, like I get the lack of information in the training set, but yeah, like it's not immediately clear. Like stuff that we think is really easy seems to be like crippling, and then other stuff that we think would be impossible that just does really easily. Options are there because I know that one person specifically, but then a whole host of her friends would be very curious to know if this can actually save them time and money when it comes to putting fashion shoots together, because that is a huge expense. And even if it's not a huge expense, it is just huge effort to put those shoots together.
A woman who created an agency around it and basically is putting all of those at the forefront of her business plan, meaning, and she was claiming that it's going to slash 70% of photo shoot costs, and it takes only 17% of the time to develop virtual photo shoot as opposed to like the regular photo shoot. It's going to slash costs, cut time. I will say that I feel like this is one of the instances where we see that it could possibly take away a lot of people's jobs, because right away you are absolutely eliminating the job of a model and a makeup artist, a hairdresser, several people that are involved in the photo shoot process.
Is actually dressing them, and companies are receptive.
That is something that people can do, or if you need to set up a whole custom website, or is that just a service that she offers? Like
lady's case, for example, you would have to hire her.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.